Hey, this is Meredith Powell. You know what time it is? It is 11 a.m. Eastern on Thursday morning. It is time for the Real Dope podcast, the show
Yay.
that is designed for you, the enabler. We wanted to design a show that didn't focus on the addict, but focused on those that love, support, and quite frankly, have to deal with addicts. Now, I always like to remind you, my sister and I are not therapists. We are not doctors. We're just people like you who have suffered through the challenges, the tribulations, and quite frankly, the incredible stress of loving an addict. So, Beth, what's on tap for today?
So today we're going to talk about why it is so difficult to stop enabling. Even when you finally become aware of yourself, it's still hard to stop doing. What are some of the things that come into that and why?
I always think too, I think, I think it is a lot like, we say it is an addiction, but it's a lot like alcohol, drugs, or whatever. I don't know that you ever really stop. I think you get to be aware of it and you get to control it. But it's a great topic, and let's go ahead and dive in.
Welcome to The Real Dope, a podcast for anyone walking alongside someone battling addiction, based on the powerful book, The Real Dope on Dealing with an Addict, by sisters Elizabeth Brand and Meridith Elliott Powell. Each episode will explore practical strategies, share authentic stories, and provide the honest guidance. Let's begin today's journey and turn survival into strength.
Let's turn survival into strength. So, why is it so difficult to stop enabling?
Well, I think in the beginning, it feels counterintuitive. You think, well, there's something that needs to be fixed, so I should fix it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So you do? Yeah. Or it feels kind of inhumane. It kind of goes against everything we culturally learn. Like there's somebody in trouble, we should try to help them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think, the biggest thing when you brought up the subject, the biggest thing to me that pops up is fear. Is that, I think the antithesis of fear is action. It's if ever I'm fearful or I'm scared, I have anxiety, I'm worried. If I take action, I am less so. But in an enabling situation, it's the worst thing you can do, right? But it is, you just want the pain that you're living with to go away, and the way to make that go away. I can remember, sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning wondering where Doug was and what was happening to him. And at least if I went out and started searching all over and I found him and I brought him home, at least was doing something. So I think like fear, I feel like enabling is soothing. I guess it is like that.
Yeah.
Just like the drug. So it's
Right.
Because you don't want to feel the feeling so badly, you want to take action. And to me, I think it's hard because sitting with fear is horrible.
Well, and I think for me, that's where it got to. Like I was soothing my fear. But I think in the very, very beginning, I just thought it was a natural reaction.
Yeah.
Like somebody's hurt, I help. With Peter, Edward was like total go to the doctor kind of person. And that's where he was getting most of his drugs and stuff. And so to me, in my brain, it was like, oh, he's going to the doctor. Oh, I should take him there. Oh, I should pick up the drugs. Oh, I should make sure, because that seemed like a natural thing to do as a loving spouse to do that. But definitely it was the fear. I too remember thinking, who can I call? And there's nobody to call. You can't make it different.
Yeah. And I think it's really hard to quit enabling because you care. We talk all the time on here about the fact of it's one thing when this is a brother or a sister or a spouse. It's a whole nother when it's a child. And I think it's very difficult to quit enabling because you care. Like this really permeates everything. I just had a client ask me last week. I said, what do you really want to focus on in some of these sessions? What would be valuable? And she said, I really want to know how to hold people accountable, but still be compassionate towards them. And I thought that's so backwards, right? Like holding people accountable is compassionate. You don't ground your children because you hate your children. You don't, take their telephone away because you hate them. You do it because you love them. But somehow we've gotten that twisted up in our head that if I don't do everything for you, I must not love you and I must not care about you. You know?
Yeah. In fact, I had a topic for maybe next week or another week, anger versus compassion. Like where you get to and what, how you get out of that anger and you start to practice compassion. But even making that sea change in your own mind that not enabling is the compassionate thing. If you always tied your child's shoes, they'd never learn to tie their shoes.
Right. Right.
You have to, but I do think it's difficult when you have a teenager who's in trouble, trying to find that balance of where your responsibility starts or stops and where, what's the difference between tough love, as they say, which I don't really like that expression, and enabling, like where do you go with it? Where do you help and where do you not help when it's a teenager? It's hard when they're not addicted as a teenager to know when to step in and when not to step in. And go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say too, but I think the thing we get hung up on with that is being perfect, right? Like, you don't have to be, you can, I think you taught me this, and I think it's really important, is that it's okay to step in, maybe not okay, but sometimes just understand you're stepping in for yourself.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. But the other thing I think with parents sometimes too, is you need to check your enabling. Am I just, because as a parent, for me, I felt like, I poured my heart and soul into this project for, 16 years, 18 years, whatever. And when he's really screwing up and you think it's going to be a screw up that's going to affect his whole life, you're just like, you can't, it feels intolerable.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I think you do have to weigh the consequences out. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
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 But sometimes they need to have those consequences. You can't protect them. You're not helping them if you're like, applying to schools for them and they have a drug problem and they haven't addressed that yet. But you're like so focused on, no, my child's going to college, when you're not addressing what's going on at home. And that kind of enabling. I know plenty of parents who filled out college applications for their children. Not children that had a drug problem or a alcohol problem, but they still, did it. And you're not helping your kid grow up.
Which I think is the, which is the other thing, a reason I think it's so difficult to quit enabling is because you don't want to see other people suffer.
Yes, especially people you love. And you're hoping that it'll go away and be different. I mean, it just comes down to the basic thing again of not accepting what is,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I liken enabling to like putting on makeup when you have acne. It might get you through the moment and give you relief in what you need to do right now, but it doesn't address the issue.
Right.
And sometimes you might need to slap that makeup on and just make it through a party or make it through a thing, but don't fool yourself that you are that you're doing anything but making it through the moment.
Well, I think I think that's the other thing too, is that I think it's difficult to quit enabling because you think you can fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You believe that you can fix us.
Yeah.
Fix it. And you think that this will be over.
And it won't.
Right.
That's one thing we can really, really count on, that it won't.
Because
it never is. You can pay the bill, but there's going to be another one.
Yeah.
And I got to the point where I just realized that paying all the doctor's bills, paying the pharmacy, I was just setting myself up for more of those things to come my way.
Right.
If I hadn't paid them, maybe the doctor would have stopped seeing Edward. But as long as I was paying, they were going to keep accepting him. Maybe the emergency room would throw us out. Maybe the pharmacy would say no more. But I didn't.
I think another reason it's really hard to quit enabling is because you're constantly having the addict say things like, you don't love me if you don't care about me. I can't get better if you don't help me. I mean, it's a constant mind screw around what the addict is telling you. And the more isolated you are from people who share the right knowledge and things like that, the more in trouble you are.
And if, even if you're like you have to be with people who have been through this before. Because people who haven't been through this will say, what do you mean you didn't take him to the hospital? What do you mean he had a doctor's appointment and you didn't care? What do you mean you didn't, pay the pharmacy? I mean, because that's the real screwy thing, because if it wasn't if it weren't addiction, if it was some other anything, you would behave differently.
Right. You would
Because
definitely.
society, because our culture has taught us to behave differently, as it should. But
So, oh, go ahead.
Well, but in this thing, as you were talking about compassion gets turned on its head. Again, like just the counterintuitiveness of everything. Everything is, you're like in bizarro opposite world.
Yeah, I think the other part, the reason it's difficult to quit enabling, we talked about bizarro world, is that in order to enable, to some degree, you're putting yourself first. You're setting that boundary and protecting yourself. And society does not give you the messages to do that. So I'm really sitting here starting to think, okay, so if this is me and this is where I am, what were the steps to start to get to a point where you begin to quit enabling? Like, how do you take those first steps to do that? If somebody's listening to this and thinking, oh my God, that's me. I mean, my kids are 35 years old and I'm still paying their phone bill. I mean, I had somebody say to me yesterday that he needed to go pick his daughter up at the airport. I said, where is she coming in from? He said, my daughter and my son live with me. And he said, they're trying to figure out what to do. He goes, they can stay forever though. And I thought, wow, gosh, they'll never stand on their own 2 feet if they can stay forever. Right. So where do you start? Like, where do you begin that process?
Well, we address this in the book, and I think we address it pretty darn well. First of all, you start by having an awareness of enabling and that it feels counterintuitive. So you learn to pause automatic thinking and automatic behaviors. But once you make that pause, I think you have to ask yourself, and this is what I did, what outcome are you looking for? What outcome do you want? And if the outcome is, I would like them not to be a drug addict anymore, is what you're doing helping that outcome?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if your outcome is I want to make it through the next 10 minutes, then maybe you need to do what you need to do and forgive yourself for doing that. Or I don't want him to, do whatever. But in the long run, we all know the outcome we want is to go back to this life that no longer exists. We want the person to be better. Is what I'm doing going to get me that outcome? No, it is not.
Right.
And so change your behavior. But I mean, that takes practice, and you're not always going to do it. And sometimes the outcome that you want, it really is just to get through the moment. And that's okay too. But just know what you're doing.
Yeah, I also think, one of the most helpful things you told me is to make a decision for the moment, and you can always undo the situation. Mm-hmm. So let's say, that your addict's in jail. Well, I'm going to, for the next 24 hours, not bail them out of jail. I'm going to just let it, and I can make another decision tomorrow. I mean, it's almost like take the addict's creed, right? Take it one day at a time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you can, like, if I decide not to pay the bill is still going to be there tomorrow. So I can decide right now and see how I can live with it and see how I feel with it. But it all starts with, I think, those two things. Like, first of all, awareness, so that you can pause your brain, like not think, immediately, I got to go get him out of jail. Just because, he calls from jail, you don't have to act immediately. And the second thing is, what outcome do I want from this? Mm-hmm. And is the action that I'm thinking about taking, is the enabling action going to get me there? And usually the answer to that is no.
Yeah. It's also when you say thinking about the outcome, like, I think to myself, if I really, really love this person and I really, really want them to get better, you talk about looking at the outcome. It's also looking at your past results. Is what you've done made any difference? Is the sacrifices that you have made improved the situation? Like, learn from your own behavior.
And that, I think, is the hardest thing to come to terms with, is everything that you did trying to do the right thing. Like, how much money, time, emotion, life I wasted, which if I would have realized this earlier, gotten out of it earlier, how much better everybody would be, including Edward, if I would have just done, if I could have stopped the enabling so much earlier. Because I think in the end, when you're sitting there saying, what outcome do I want? And then you're deciding if you're going to take the enabling action or not. And if you still feel compelled to take it, was it worth it?
Right.
Was it worth it? Like, at least, if you just feel the need, you got to bail him out of jail. Just remind yourself to ask yourself later, was it worth it? And maybe this is like a big, nice journaling exercise for everybody, because that's where you're going to really reflect. What did I do? Was it worth it?
Right.
Yeah,
I also think that your number one step is, even if you can't stop it, is to start to admit that what you're doing isn't helping. I mean,
Yeah.
I know times that I definitely was enabling, but at least I was aware of what I was doing. And I couldn't stop myself in that moment, because sometimes the emotion's so high. Like, I mean, I remember the time that, when Doug used to disappear, the good times were when he was in jail, or he had enough money to get a hotel room somewhere. But a lot of times he'd be on the street somewhere and I didn't know where he was. And sometimes I couldn't handle that fear. I couldn't take it. The stress on me was too much. And so I would need to interfere with that. I would need to go find him. I would need to either get him home or put him in a hotel somewhere, or even call and get him arrested. But I was very clear that I was doing that for me.
And I also think that, like, your awareness of that now, like, makes your life now better. That you can say that you thought that through. Like, you're not saying, Doug used to disappear, what else could I do? I had to go get him. You're like, no, you have done enough work that you're looking and saying, that is a fear I have now. So I make sure, and believe me, everybody in our family knows, you have to call Meridith if you go somewhere and you haven't talked to her in 2 or 3 days, because she needs to know where you are at all times. And if you're her husband, you have to call every day.
You do, because but I realize that's my stuff.
Yeah. And you realize that your stuff. You also realize what you need to control your anxiety to stop your enabling.
Right.
And that's the gift of living through this, if there are gifts, and there are gifts.
I also think when you think about outcome, outcome, and even define that too for what you want. Like, is this, like, what I always really wanted was to be happily married. I wanted to feel safe. I wanted to be happy. I wanted to have a life that was free of, as much self-induced worry as I possibly, could have. And what I was doing was not getting me there, not getting me there. Not only to the outcome I wanted was for my husband not to drink, but when I really got under it, what I wanted in life, these things I was doing was not getting me there at all. No. And so I needed to change my behaviors. I think one of the greatest ironies of life is that it's about changing your behaviors. When you start focusing on only you, your life starts to work out the way it's supposed to work out. I don't know what that is. I don't know if it's that you see the world differently or something, but all that effort that's going in to try to fix the addict that you're wasting in enabling behavior is taking you so much further away from the goals and dreams that you want.
Well, it's also, even if you can't think about yourself, like my issue is, I have issues with that. You're not helping that. Like, when you learn to think about yourself and focus on yourself, you help the other people in your life as well. And if you can't do it for you, you do it for them. You're a better person to be around. You're a better person. You're more effective, everything about, and they get to live their lives and become more effective too. You are not, enabling is not helping. It's not helping. And if you can't do it for you, you can, and you love the person who has the addiction issue, you need to do it for them, even though it acts like it's hurting. I mean, it's really good comparison, Meridith. It's not punishment. It is helping them to grow and learn.
So all right. So what are the biggest things you're learning from today's podcast?
It's a lot of review. I always go back. Almost everything in life is awareness, is bringing awareness to what you're doing, and to looking at that outcome. Am I going to get what I want? Am I going to get the outcome for the person I love or for me by doing this behavior?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I'm getting is that a really good reminder that the best ways to get the outcomes that I want are to let go and to focus on the things that I can't control. And that even if things look bad in the moment, the more that I can focus on the areas that I truly affect and that are truly under my control, the more likelihood I am to achieve that outcome.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you don't have to make a decision this very second.
Yeah,
You can give
exactly.
yourself time and you can change your mind.
Yeah. I like this idea of talking next week about the difference between anger and compassion.
Yeah, let's do that. And let's
Okay.
I want to do like a deep dive in what real compassion is. I want to
Okay.
know what love is. Yeah.
That sounds good. All right. We'll
Okay.
see you all right back here next week for another episode of The Real Dope. Until then, take one step to stop enabling.
One step.